And I have to say to everybody that's listening, don't get sidetracked by money. Money is a thing. Obviously, you need money to live. I get that. But follow your passion and follow where your passion takes you. Everyone, and welcome to Life with a Cheri on Top. I am your host, Cheri Hagan, and today I am joined once again by my loving husband, Kevin, who really wants to be here as a co-host.
Yes, I do.
Welcome, baby.
Thank you. What are we talking about today?
Today, I want to talk about career changes.
Oh.
Because I've floundered my whole life trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I cannot be the only one.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody figures it out. But I thought, I mean, you were pretty set in when you were doing events and stuff. I thought that was a good career for you. But yeah, you've moved around a little.
I have. No, okay.
We all have.
Yeah, see, he's only known me for 14 years, really. But when you look at my career as a whole, like I started working when I was 15, I have jumped around. So I started with retail at Woodfield Mall, and I worked at stores that don't even exist anymore. I worked at Stewart's and I worked at Gina Cole. My mother was a district manager for Lerner, so that's kind of, I guess that's why I chose that as my first jobs. I had a worker's permit when I was 15. I left retail because I hated it so much, and I started working at McDonald's, which I actually enjoyed. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a cook, thank God. I didn't want to be back in a kitchen. I'm a people person. So I enjoyed working at McDonald's. And then I ended up actually being, I mean, at the time, I was their youngest head trainer ever hired at, I don't know if I was 16 or 17, but genuinely loved it. But I left McDonald's because, you know, I was too cool to work at McDonald's for the rest of my life. And now I could probably own 20 franchises and be a gazillionaire. Yeah,
they were a very good company. A lot of people I knew in that age they worked there for a year or so, but did the same thing. It was like, I'm not working at McDonald's. This is,
yeah,
it's either embarrassing as a kid or just don't, you don't want to do that. You're too cool to do that. But they can be very successful if you put your
absolutely
effort into it.
And what was your first job, Kevin?
Well, besides a paper route, which I used to run all the time, I also worked at Russell's Roasted Chicken when I was 14 years old. I was in charge of taking the dead chickens off of the truck and bringing them into the back room and plucking them and then cutting them into the pieces. So the breast and the legs and the wings and the thighs. Yeah.
What a fantastic first job.
It was fantastic indeed.
I don't know why you didn't stay with that.
Yeah, I got paid cash. I'm not sure they even knew who I was. I mean, it was just kind of, I'd come in, I'd do that, and I'd take some money and leave.
I went from retail to McDonald's, and then I got into veterinary medicine. So I started working at a local animal hospital, and I loved it.
How old then, roughly?
19, maybe 20.
Yeah.
Gosh, I really wish I could remember exact dates, but I was right around there. I started working at the animal hospital as an office person, and then I loved the animals. I loved everything about it. So I started getting involved in doing some veterinary technician work that you could do without being licensed. And then I became a licensed vet tech. And then I went to school at University of Wisconsin-Madison to do veterinary medicine. That didn't last very long because I got sidetracked by money. So
isn't that always the case?
It is actually. And I have to say to everybody that's listening, don't get sidetracked by money. Money is a thing. Obviously, you need money to live. I get that. But follow your passion and follow where your passion takes you. I've always said that if I become a millionaire by, I don't know, lottery, because I don't know how else that's going to happen, I would open my own veterinary clinic, because that is where the real money is made. If you can afford your own clinic, or your own hospital, however you want to phrase it, that's where you make a lot of money. Veterinarians don't make a whole lot of money. And back when I was in school, the vets that I worked for were making $38,000 and $42,000. I get it. It was in the late 80s, but it wasn't a lot of money even then.
Yeah.
So I was lured by money. I left there and I went over to Motorola subsidiary called Chicago Communications, which we just called Chi-Com. And I loved it there. I loved the people. I loved everything I did. They were my family for 9 years. And I went from billing clerk to, I think this is right. I went from billing clerk to billing manager to office manager. And then I moved over to sales to sell maintenance contracts. And I loved every aspect of it. I really did. But then I got divorced. I don't know if this is the same for men, but for women, we make drastic changes, I think. I mean, I know every person is not the same, but when I got divorced, I lost a bunch of weight. I cut my hair. I changed careers. It was like, I'm leaving that life behind and I'm moving forward. So I was at Chi-Com for, I think, 9.5 years. And then I left again for money. A trade show exhibit company recruited me. And so I made the change. And it was a horrible change. And I hated that position from day 3. I was like, oh shit, I made a huge mistake. And I just left this company that I loved that was like family to me. And by the way, everybody at Chi-Com and everybody at Motorola that used to work there, we are still family. I still feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you? Where did you go from Russell's Roasted Chicken?
I'm still there. No, I just...
That's all he does, folks. He just plucks
pluck chickens. So when I was 16, I got a real job and paid taxes and everything. And I was working with Service Merchandise. So I was hired with them as a sight and sound clerk. So working in the stereo portion and camera portion of the store. It was a temporary hire because it was Christmas help that they were needing. So
okay.
I got in at the
right time,
right before Christmas, and did well enough to stay on board. So they kept me on. And long story short, I worked my way through the ranks there with a number of different promotions to different departments and in charge of different areas. And by the time I was 22, I believe, I was a store manager and opened up their store in Elgin and ran their store there for a couple of years. So I was in retail for quite some time as well. And listen, yeah, retail, it is a rough business.
Oh, it is.
But I did well there, and Service was a great company. They trained their people very well. They were always very, concerned, and they were very consistent in all of their stores. So no matter kind of where you went, you were always treated the same. You knew what was happening. The procedures were the same.
Yeah.
You would act the same to each of the other managers and help them promote themselves and get into, another level of position within the stores. Because there was, in the Chicagoland area, I believe there were 16 stores that, just were, people were transferred back and forth between stores and promoted and all over. So it was crazy.
I used to love, the highlight of the preseason Christmas was the Service Merchandise catalog that you would get. And I would mark 500 pages of things that I wanted. And I never got any of it, but whatever. Yeah. Listen, Service, and you always speak highly of that company. You really liked it there.
I was a kid getting into it, but they really trained me well and I felt like I was being kind of watched over, and some of the store managers I had were fantastic guys and gals, and they just helped me along too. So, you ride some coattails, you find the right people that help you out and treat you well, and, you take advantage of some of those situations where you can, and, just be aggressive to look for that next level. And that carried me through, I was 23 and a half, 24 years old when I left there.
Okay.
I started going to college and decided, man, I might be missing out on something if I don't continue to stay at work here. So I actually just stayed at service and worked through that instead of going to school.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many kids that I genuinely feel sorry for the kids of the past and of today and of the future, because it's so hard to say at 18 years old or however old you are when you're a senior in high school, okay, this is the path I want to take and I have to stick with it because my parents are paying for college, or I'm paying for college and I need to figure it out.
Right.
And, so many people change majors and do all kinds of things. And that's, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. That's life.
Yeah.
I think you and your ex did a fantastic job in helping your kids kind of determine what they wanted to do. Not determine, but help them process, I guess, what they wanted to do, because you talked to them about what they thought they wanted to do.
Right.
And then you encouraged them to do that. And you put them in contact with people that actually did that,
right,
so that they could get a feel for it.
Right. Luckily, I mean, we knew some people, and you could, somebody wants to be whatever, a firefighter, really, we put them in a fire station for a night or a day and have them see what's being done and get a feel for it and get an understanding for it. And then, also just going as far as looking up the job position on a website and finding out what it consists of and what's and unfortunately pay comes into this a lot, but what's the average pay, and how does that structure and what you're looking to do? And there's a lot that goes into it. I never had any of that direction. So
Me either.
We were lucky enough to give some direction to that and help that along. But I mean, it's, I've been very lucky in kind of sticking with outside of retail once I left the retail environment. So I went from service merchandise to American Tourister and worked with as a district manager in their retail environment for many years.
Yeah.
When I got bored with that, they put me into a position with American Tourister as a national account manager. So I was now selling the products into the retail stores.
Right.
So some of my stores that I worked with at Service Merchandise, actually Service was one of my accounts that I sold to.
Sure.
So it was a nice transition. And when I got into that sales level, that's when I realized this is what I want to do. I thought I was going to be a store manager for life. And which nothing wrong with that. Believe me, it was
not at all.
Great position, great job, great company. But once I got into sales, I realized that's really what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be.
You seriously, here's the thing about my husband, Kevin, and I've said this, I swear to you, I have said this since the first day I met him. He is the most genuine person you will ever meet. And he is not that typical, like, car salesman, used car sales guy. He's not that person. Everybody loves Kevin because he is so genuine, and he just tells, he can sell anything to anybody, but he does it in such a way because he's genuine about it, and I feel the same way about myself when it comes to real estate. I will tell my clients, you don't really want this. Like, you're getting caught up in a frenzy right now because it's, for the past 3 or 4 years in real estate, it's been, I got to win,
Right.
win, because you're up against multiple offers.
Right.
And the truth is, we'll find you another house. It's fine. Like, don't get caught up in this frenzy because you feel like you have to win.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes me an exceptional realtor. And
Totally agree.
And I think that's also what makes you an exceptional salesperson. And listen, he's VP of sales. He's in charge of a lot of people, and I will just speak on their behalf because I know everybody that works for him. And if I'm speaking out of turn, you guys, I'm sorry, but if I were in your position, I would love to report to Kevin. Like, I would love it, because he is, he'll play the bad guy when he needs to play the bad guy. He's just so good at what he does. And this was not meant to be a Kevin Love fest. That's not.
Keep going. I love it.
No,
it's great.
I'm just saying, actually, the point of this whole podcast is to talk about career changes and kind of life as it happens. And you can choose the direction, you can choose your path, right? And you can follow that path. And for those that can do that, I applaud you, because I'm clearly not that person when you look at my work history. You know, I worked at McDonald's, or I worked in retail, and then I worked at McDonald's, and then I went to veterinary medicine, and then I went to ShyCom, and then I went over to trade shows, and then I worked for a company called OAG. But I do want to talk about quickly how I quit my job at this trade show company that I'm not going to name, that is still in business. So they're headquartered in Minneapolis, and I had been there about 3 months, and I was miserable. I left my job at Motorola, and I was miserable. I was at a corporate meeting in Minneapolis, and everybody was screaming at each other across the conference table. Nobody was listening to each other. Everybody was screaming at each other. And I watched this go on for about 20, 25 minutes. And keep in mind, I was also getting divorced. I had walked away. Okay. If anybody's listened to the other podcast about divorce, you understand why I've walked away. Just let me say that. But I've walked away from my marriage. I've left a job that I've known for 9.5 years to go work for this company that was supposed to be, you know, the next best thing, which wasn't. And I'm watching these people scream at each other. And I just stood up, hand to God, this is what happened. I stood up and I said, I quit. And they all just shut up and they looked at me and they were like, what? And I said, I can't work for you people. You're nuts. Like, you're all screaming at each other. Nothing is getting accomplished here. I'm out. And I left. I walked out. I took a cab from that particular company to the Minneapolis airport. I caught an earlier flight because this was way before 9/11, where you could actually just catch a flight whenever you needed to. I was flying ATA. Do you remember ATA?
I do, yeah.
Okay, I was flying ATA into Midway, and the entire flight home, I was hysterically crying. Whoever was sitting next to me, I'm so sorry. But I was like, okay, I just quit my job. I am getting divorced. I gave my husband the house. I have I have an apartment that I'm living in.
Yeah.
And how am I going to afford this?
What did I just do?
Yeah, what did I just do? I landed at Midway, and I drove to a, what do you call those places where they find you a job?
Oh, temporary, like a temporary place?
Like a temporary,
temp.
Yeah, like a temp position.
Company.
What's the matter with me? Why can't I think of what it's called? Whatever it's called. I walked in, and it was maybe 4:30 in the afternoon, and I walked in, and I've clearly been crying for hours. And I walk in and I said, I need a job. And she said, okay, what do you do? And, I gave her my history, and she said, okay, do you have a resume? And I said, no, but I'll put one together. And in 3 days, again, hand to God, 3 days, I had a resume to her, and she found me a temporary job at a company called OAG. OAG was the best job I've ever had in my entire life. Like, hands down. Sorry, ShyCom people, because you come in second. But OAG was by far the best job I've ever had. They published all worldwide airline schedules. This was before the internet. So I know you know this.
I use that guide all the time when I travel.
The OAG Pocket Flight Guide.
Yep.
Every traveler, every frequent flyer traveler carried around an OAG Pocket Flight Guide.
Mm-hmm.
again, before 9/11, you could, if you missed your flight or you were early for your flight or whatever, you could look up other flights on this pocket flight guide and go, oh, I'll just, I'm on American right now, but I'll walk over to Delta or United or whoever. They've got an earlier flight or a later flight or whatever your scenario is, and I'll take that. So with OAG, I started as the assistant to the marketing director. And then I became marketing manager. And then I became, and then 9/11 happened. So the travel industry fell apart, but OAG tried to hold it together for a while. So by the time I left, I was in charge of everything. Like it was marketing, training, trade shows, which kind of falls under marketing. But I mean, there was so many things that I was doing at the time. They had so many rounds of layoffs after 9/11. And I think I'm almost positive I got hit with the 9th round of layoffs. So I had survived 8 rounds. And they went from a company of 1,800 employees in Oak Brook to, by the time I was laid off, I think they had gone down to like 190. It was nuts. And then I got laid off. Where was I going to work? I thought, no problem. I've got all this experience. I know what I'm doing. I will be able to find a job in a minute. 9 months later, thank you, OAG, for the payout, by the way, because that got me through those 9 months. 9 months later, I ended up at a payroll company as an assistant to the president of the company. And I was really not happy at the time. But I was taking, when I tell you I was making less than half of what I made at OAG, I was making less than half. But I had to take a job because I needed a job. When you worked for, I'm sorry, wow, have I taken over this conversation?
No, just a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. That's all good.
So when you worked for American Tourister, kind of talk about your path from there.
So I mentioned I was a national account manager from there. I got kind of bored with that and asked my president of the company at the time to, if there's any other challenges that I could do. And he put me into the premium and incentive marketplace, which is a whole nother story. But that was where I began to love the channel that I'm in now. And that's where that kind of all started. So I went from there to another luggage company that was Kenneth Cole licensee. And it was fantastic. I built my own little business inside their company and we were doing just great. So, I've always kind of been in the sales position, and the biggest learning curve I had to have was after I worked my way out of my own position at Kenneth Cole. We did so well and they were a licensee company. We had so much money coming in and the sales were growing so quickly that they decided to take the license away from the corporation that we were working with.
Jeez.
And took it right in-house. So put 6 guys out of a job on a Friday afternoon in May.
Nice.
But yeah, so from there I actually went to in-home sales, which I never thought I was capable of doing, and it took a long time to change my thought process and my attitude a little bit, and go through the training with Sears to sell siding and windows in home, and it's actually quite a challenge. I don't know if you've ever been an in-home salesperson.
Never.
Any of you out there have been, you know what I'm talking about. It's, there's a pressure to close the deal because you're fully commissioned. You're not going to get paid unless they buy. And obviously as in-home sales, you have 48 hours to rescind your decision if you decide you felt pressured or not. So it's a pressure sale, but it can't be a pressure sale. So you really have to be
walk that line.
Yeah, it's a thin line, and it's very interesting to do. So I did very well with that and was very successful there. And after some time, luckily, I got back into the marketplace and distribution channel that I'm in currently.
Yeah. Well, you're amazing at what you do, and I'm not saying that because I'm your wife. You are truly amazing at what you do.
Thank you.
And I sit here and listen to you when you're home.
Mm-hmm.
And almost on a weekly basis, I say to you, I could not do your job because he is so good at it. Like he's just so good at, he's got how many salespeople reporting to you?
In total, it's just about 27, I think.
Okay. That's a lot. Yeah. And so that's 27 personalities that you have to deal with. And Lord knows I have talked about this before. I am not a good sandbox person. I don't play well with others. Like I know what I need to do and I do it well, but don't step in my sandbox is my kind of thing. And you are just so good at it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's
a true compliment.
I know you've told me that before. I appreciate that very much.
Times.
I do.
Yeah.
And there is a balance to it. I mean, I have to have a level head all the time
all the time he does.
Between sales people, customers, and factories.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different scenarios that take place, and you just have to be able to recognize the situation and react to it calmly but quickly.
And he does. I swear to God, he's the best at what he does. This is not meant to be a Kevin fest, by the way, but it's true. He really is fantastic at it. And I'm fantastic at what I do, but it took me a while to get there. It's kind of my point. So I worked for this payroll company and I was the assistant to the president of the company. I worked incredibly hard for a very minimal salary, but I had to prove my worth, and I did. And I will say that they were very good about when I said, hey, I've done A, B, C, D, E, F, and G to make this company successful along with everything you guys are doing. They said, yes, you have, and here's a giant raise. I'm not taking away from that, right? In the end, they paid me what I think. Yeah, they stepped up. Yep. Exactly right. And then the person that was the founder and president of the company hired somebody else, actually a couple of people, 2 people specifically, to take over. One of the persons I had absolutely no problem with, and the other person, and unfortunately, this was the person I had to directly report to. It was like oil and water. However you want to say it, it was not good.
Yeah.
So I went from, I'm perfectly happy in this position and I'm going to stay here forever to what the hell? Like, I cannot deal with this person. Eventually it all came to a head, and I'm actually going to talk about that in a different episode because it has everything to do with ethics. And I'm a very ethical person, and the person I was reporting to was not. And so I left right before they went public. And I literally could be a millionaire right now, but I chose to leave. Knowing that, I chose to leave because I can hold my head high knowing that I made the right decision for me. Right?
Yeah.
So after I left that payroll company, I was like, oh, shit. So I had left in a hurry because my boss and I had gotten in a huge fight, and he had threatened me basically and said, I'll make sure you never go anywhere further than where you are in this company. And I was like, well, here's a big fuck you. I'm leaving. And I left. I found another job in like 4 or 5 days after that argument and left. And then of course I wasn't happy because I didn't even bother checking anything.
Right.
And so I floundered for a bit. And then I came home one day and said to Kevin, okay, here's the thing. I just quit my job and now we have no income in terms of my income. We only have, we're now a 1 income household, and it's solely based on your income, Kevin. So I'm going to become a realtor and I'm going to go to school. In Kevin's defense, listen, he is, I swear to God, the most patient person in the world. He was just like, okay, if that's what you want to do, great. How long is it going to take? And I said, it's a 16-week course. I'll go, I'll get it done. And I think in maybe 6 months total, I went to school, got my license, made a decision, and moved forward. And I was Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm. It was quick. There's it was a lot of studying, a lot of time.
Oh my God, it was a lot of studying.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
back in school days, but
yeah, and I
plowed through it.
And I love real estate. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It is not what you see on HGTV. I just want to say that. But
right.
It is a fabulous job and I love it. And I'm never leaving it. I also love this podcasting. It's something I've always wanted to do since I was a kid because I was always grounded. I'm just going to go way backwards to when I was a teenager. My mother was very overprotective. And so for every minute, I hand to God, for every minute I was late past my curfew, I was grounded 1 week. So if I was 3 minutes late, I was grounded for 3 weeks.
Man.
And she stuck to that.
Well.
And P.S., my curfew was 10 o'clock. It's ridiculous. Even now, it's ridiculous. So when I was grounded from going out. I was grounded from people coming in, and I was grounded from TV. So the only thing that left me with was the radio in my room.
Singing to your broomstick.
That's right. Yeah. So, well, it's more than that. It was kind of the radio personalities.
Yeah.
So, there was no Howard Stern back then, but there were Chicago DJs that I loved. So Chicago Brandmeier. Good Lord.
Johnny B.
Jonathan Brandmeier. Oh my God.
Sidekick Buzz Kilman.
No, I knew Buzz
okay.
Kilman.
Yeah.
I've met Buzz Kilman. I've partied with Buzz Kilman. That wasn't it. No, I was thinking of Larry Lujack and Little Tommy. And, there were all these radio personalities that I loved. And I thought, I really want to do that. But when I looked into it, it really didn't pay anything unless you became famous. So I never went down that path.
Yeah. I always wanted to do radio. Even when I was at Service Merchandise and making the announcements, code 9 to jewelry. Everybody's like, yo, you got a great voice. You should be in radio. I'm like, yeah. As I always say, I've got the face for it. But
no, stop it. So the whole point to this episode is honestly to encourage people to follow their dream, whatever it is, right? Because I wanted to be on the radio since I was, I was grounded my entire teenage life. So let's call it 14, 15 years old. I wanted to be on the radio. There was no such thing as podcasting back then. I'm following that dream doing this, even though I'm still a realtor realtor, by the way, not realtor. It's realtor.
I get corrected all the time.
Oh my God. So stop saying realtor. It's realtor.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker Schaumburg, and I love what I do. But I love this as well. And I love that I'm able to do both.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
And this, even though he gives me guff about it, only on the podcast, by the way, does he give me guff about it. He really wants to do this too, I think.
Does
he not have the best voice ever? He has the best voice for this.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. It's fun. I enjoy it for you, really. I know that you like doing it. You take the lead on this. I'm just here to fill in and answer questions.
Yeah, no.
I got enough on my plate.
You guys, don't you think he should be like a voiceover person? He would be great on commercials.
Are we running out of time?
Yeah, we are actually running out of time. So I'm going to end it there. However, my whole point to this was follow your dream. Don't follow money necessarily. Follow your dream. Because I think Listen, money is great. Money makes the world go round. I get it. But you need to do what makes you happy.
Yeah, if you've got a lot of money and you're not happy, it's not going to be, that's usually not a good situation either.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Money isn't everything. All right. So I'm going to I'm going to end it there, and I'm going to ask everybody to hit your subscribe button, please. Whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Audible, YouTube, our website, lifewithacheriontop.com, wherever you're listening, please hit subscribe, because this cannot go on without your subscriptions. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again next week. I'll see you soon. Bye.